Welcome to Module 3, Lesson 3, and congratulations, you made it to the last video in this course. I want to leave you with a forward-looking view of the future of GPTs and more broadly, AI. As we sit here today, we're literally in the early days of massive disruption, one of which typically you only get to see a few times in your life, right? So I want you to comprehend how big this is. This is on the scale of the internet, cloud, mobile, going further back, the car, the steam engine. This is a huge transformation, and you can't let it get past you, right? You got to take advantage of it. And with any of those massive disruptions we just mentioned, like the internet, mobile, all those things, where we started on that journey looks starkly different from where the future ended up and what it unlocked. So take the internet, for example. When it first came out, you couldn't even be on the phone and the internet at the same time. And the speed was insanely slow, but the technology was still mind-blowing. Look at the mobile phone. When it first came out, we had to text with a number pad and hit buttons 3 times just to get a letter. And Snake was the most amazing thing on it. And now it's unlocked entire businesses and industries like Uber, Instacart, and many more. And I say all that to say we're in the early days of this Gen AI transformation. And the capabilities we have now when it comes to building GPTs will look completely like grade school math. They'll look completely different compared to where they're going to be in the future. So I urge you, don't wait till technology is perfect and it has every bell and whistle, because at that point it's going to be too late. You're going to be too far behind. So instead of letting the wave crash on top of you, ride it. Ride the wave as things change and progress. Be on the front end of this disruption. Now, I want to leave you with one of the best videos I've seen on the future of Gen AI and where it's going. And it's a great video by this guy by the name of Generative Evans. And he's an extremely smart guy, spent 20 years analyzing mobile media technology. He's worked in equity research, strategy, consulting, and venture capital, and now he's an independent consultant. So I'm going to play this video. It's a clip of this longer form video, and I'll put the link to the long form video in the comments so you can watch the whole thing. But I clipped out the main points that really get to this transformation we're seeing here. Go give Generative Evans a follow. I think he's got a newsletter. It's definitely worth your time. So let's watch it.
I thought it might be a good place to start with Bill Gates this spring. Said that he's seen 2 things that blew his mind as demos of technology. One was the graphical user interface when he went to Xerox PARC in the late 70s, and the other was ChatGPT. And I think that's a pretty good way of summing up how excited the tech industry has become. Everyone in the tech industry has sort of spent the last 12 months walking around with their holding onto the top of their head with both hands saying, oh my God, this is very exciting, but also saying, well, yes, but what is this? And I think the challenge we have is just to kind of work out, how should we understand this? What level of a change is this? How do we conceptualize this? What kind of levels of generalization do we apply to it? And that's kind of a base case that says this is just another platform shift. It's just as big as the iPhone or cloud or SaaS or machine learning, which is a pretty big thing to say it's only that. But that's sort of a base case. And then you have something alluded to in that quote from Bill Gates, which I'll come back to, that this is actually more like a once every 30 or 40 year shift. This is more like a fundamental change in the nature of software and how generalized software can be. And I kind of want to dig into each of these and think about not what are the answers, but what questions would we ask? How would we think about what we might think? And so if we talk first about platform shifts, that every 10 or 15 years the tech industry changes what it builds on. And so we went from mainframes to the PCs, to web, to smartphones. Smartphones happened a bit over 15 years ago, and now we wonder what the next platform might be, and that's now probably going to be generative AI. And so that's what every new company gets built on. And platform shifts tend to go through 3 stages. There's a stage at the beginning where people say, what is this useful for? If it's a consumer service, people say it's a toy. It's a stupid toy for rich people. If it's enterprise, people will say that won't scale. Then there's a period when it's exciting and you want to get a job in it. And then there's a period when it becomes boring. And that's where smartphones are now. The new iPhone is amazing, but it's not as exciting as the first iPhone. It's become kind of a boring, mature industry. It's gone gone through that cycle. I think you could say that machine learning that we got excited about 10 years ago is now kind of most of the way through that cycle. It's still a bit exciting, but it's well on the way to being kind of a mature, well-understood technology that just goes into the deployment phase. And then generative machine learning is kind of at the beginning of that cycle. We are wondering how it's useful, but we're also very excited about it. And you can kind of generalize this to think about any kind of platform shift that, you can look at SQL and say, well, that made it easier to build an arbitrary data query. But yes, but what does that mean? Well, that got you SAP and just-in-time supply chains. The App Store wasn't just a slightly better way of putting Java games onto a phone. It enabled a whole wave of new application.
He's talking about the App Store here. And you could probably draw some parallels to the GPT Store. So think of everything the App Store unlocked, like he's talking about Uber, Instagram, TikTok, 5 billion people online. What is the GPT Store going to unlock? We'll see.
And so we have this sort of question now. Here we have this new platform shift, this shift towards generative AI. To begin with, what we've seen this year are, the equivalent of making a Tetris clone for the iPhone in 2008. Over time, what kind of applications do we build that are native to this new thing? And so that's a sort of a very straightforward discussion of what a platform shift looks like, how this is likely to go. But you could also say, well, maybe this is more than a platform shift. And so let's go back to this Bill Gates quote. He doesn't mention mobile here. He doesn't mention the web or SaaS or open source or cloud. This is the GUI and ChatGPT. There's a much kind of longer time frame sort of innovation. And what he's suggesting here is that you've got a step change in generalization. That with a command line, you had to learn the commands and type them in. And so a very small number of people could do that, and it was a lot of work to do anything even fairly simple. And what a GUI meant was that now you could just see the commands and click on them. You could see your choices and click on them. And so this was a huge change in who could use software and in how much software there could be, how many different problems could be solved with software. But someone still had to make the GUI that you're clicking on. Someone had to make that individual piece of software that you're using to solve your problem, one piece of software at a time. Potentially, with an LLM, with generative AI, you could just go and tell the computer what you want. So you don't need someone to have created a separate tool for every one of the 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 different tasks. So you can have far less software doing far more. And so you can automate massively more tasks. You can have massively more problems being solved, but actually with fewer tools.
And this is what I talked about earlier, the democratization of AI. And this does a very good job of talking about it, how you used to need the command line, then the GUI, but somebody still needed to build the GUI. With generative AI, it may just be us prompting the AI to build the things we need for us, to do the tasks we need for us. And GPTs are a great way, a great modality of doing this.
Look at ChatGPT and I ask myself, is this a product or is this a technology demo? Can I give this to the accounts payable department of a regional cement manufacturer and say, hey, now you can solve all of your invoicing problems with this? Or do you need to build some other stuff around that? And what I think of when I look at this screenshot is I think of this. You can give people Excel, but what do you do with it? How do you know what you would do when you open that? You have this blank canvas and you've got this grid and it could be anything, but if it could be anything, you don't really know what to ask. This, of course, is why Microsoft produced this screen. They're giving you suggestions and ideas and tooling around that. But there's an old joke that every Unix function became a company, and I think every one of these templates also became a company. Those all get unbundled out of Excel and they get turned into standalone companies. And I think you could clearly kind of suggest that all of those suggestions you see on that ChatGPT window, again, become startups, become new companies, get unbundled, get broken out into something else.
Now, this is exactly what we're talking about with GPTs. You're unbundling, you're going after very specific use cases, and you're going to be on the forefront of this because now you know how to create GPTs. You're enabled to go do this now.
I think the best way to express really what's going on now is to think about, in fact, about the car industry. The first 50 years of the car industry was what's a car company. The second 50 years was what happens when everyone has a car. And the same thing now happens with software. The last 50 years was what's a computer company, what's software. The next 50 years is what happens when everyone is online, what happens when everyone uses software as part of everything that they do.
And at first, I didn't quite understand this analogy, but what he's saying here is the first 50 years was, what is a car? You didn't even know what a car was. But the next 50 years, when everyone has a car, what is it enabling? Think of all the highway systems we have, the travel. Again, Uber, you had to have a car to get to there. Entire businesses were based around this new transformation of the car being created. You have malls, shopping malls here. That wasn't a thing when you didn't have cars, right? You didn't have the ability to travel to these things with ease. And what are we going to see with Gen AI? What is that going to enable once it becomes completely commonplace in our world? Again, the full video is in the comments. I hope you found value in that. Give Benedict Evans a follow. Really smart guy when it comes to transformations. But that's it. The course is now over. Congratulations on getting the whole way through. I hope you found value in this, and I hope you're now creating and feeling enabled to create your own GPTs that you can now sell. Thank you so much for taking the time and being with me on this course. It was a lot of fun creating it. And as always, if you found value in this course, please share it with your friends, your colleagues, your family, whoever. There's a lot of people that could benefit from learning this, and I hope you share that with them. And like always, if you can, leave a testimonial. We appreciate it. Happy building. Good luck creating your own GPTs. You got this.